Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Doppler's Gear Garage. It is Saturday, May 20th. Thank you so much for joining us. How can I play this early in the morning? It's a funny thing. This shirt, I kind of wore it today. First of all, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope everybody is getting off to a good start. Let's take a quick moment and raise them up. A little bit of Pete's coffee there, courtesy of the one and only Melissa Doppler. Let me know in the chat what you were drinking on this fine Saturday morning. The funny thing is Mod 2 TVF. What does that stand for, by the way? I've been playing a ridiculous amount of guitar. Paul Richard, good morning to you, my friend. I hope you survived last weekend in one piece. That could be interpreted wrong. Paul was celebrating Mother's Day by being the house chauffeur. Have we got a show for you? First of all, Chris Alexander, hey, excellent pitch control with the whammy. So, I've been playing an obscene amount of guitar, and I've discovered something that's very, very important. Modulation with a time variant filter. Okay. Love that. All right. Good. Well, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. The modulation, the TVF. Love it. Zach, what's going on? Venice, California. Stopped caffeine 3 weeks ago. You're a brave soul. The funny thing is that, truth be told, the Doppler household is about to go through some major food revisions. In the desire to live longer and healthier, we're going to be making some major dietary changes. And it's going to be very interesting. Fortunately, caffeine is still going to be on the menu, but a number of my favorite indulgences food-wise will no longer be there. Chai tea for me, awesome, way to go. Awesome. So in any case, in my own way, I feel your pain. I hope that decaffeination is going well. 3 weeks. That's awesome. Way to go. All right. Well, so this whole guitar thing, and this shirt kind of in many ways represents the journey that I've been on. And I want to share this amongst a number of things. First of all the amazing people that tune in every week. Of all the things that you can do, on a Saturday, choosing to fly Air Doppler. You have many choices when you fly on a Saturday morning, but we want to thank you for flying Air Doppler. So the thing is that also no sugar, Zach. Yeah, so no, we're kind of getting ready to do a similar thing. That's great. Way to go. I bet. So tell me, Zach, are you feeling better? Do you have more energy? And what was the first week of no sugar like? So we know that the first, 5 to 7 days of kind of the change we're getting ready to make is going to be a thing. But hey, there you go. What's going on? Melissa Doppler, the one and only. There we go. I've been waiting to do that for way too long. Okay, so in any case, super excited. Error, you need to change your video resolution. Okay, not consulted by this configuration. Oh, I see why it's doing that. Okay, let me just make sure that everything's going okay in YouTube world. Is it letting it play? Okay, good. It looks like the stream's playing. Hang on. So let me just take a look at something here real quick. I see why it's angry at me. There we go. Okay, looks like it's up and running. Good. All right, great. All right, perfect. All right, so first of all, as I frequently say at the beginning of these streams, this is Nandini, what's going on? Good morning to you. So this is a place where, for my students, I get a chance to do an extended Q&A. People, by the way, I am taking new students just in case you're looking for a teacher. But one of the things is that I have a tendency to teach primarily in these 20-minute blocks, which means the time goes by pretty quickly. And this is this very action-packed thing, which means it's not always the best environment to open up these long extended questions and the dialogue thereof, because I'm very conscious of the fact that as a teacher, I want to make sure every week, in addition to kind of answering kind of any immediately pressing questions, I also, through this forum, provide the opportunity for people to ask other questions. The other thing is folks that are and are not my students also get a chance to use this format to kind of bring different things that are on their minds that I can talk about. So first of all, Chris Alexander is perennially awesome. And he always kind of sets me up with great stuff. I gave him a harassment because normally by about noon I've got his questions for the week, and they're always great. And today he did not disappoint. I've also got a series of shows, but I'm waiting for something to come through in text here to announce the third one of them. But I got a trio of shows coming up in addition to the Neely Bross show, June 10th in San Pedro, California at Alvis Showroom. There's a trio of shows in July in Nashville, Muscle Shoals, and what the heck is the name of that town there? Hang on just one second. It's at Earl's Place. That's where the heck it is. And Earl's Place is it's in Alabama. Gosh darn it. I'll have this up there. Gosh darn it. Where is that? In any case, you know what? You don't want me to be noodling through this thing. In any case, so that will be on July 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. That's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, respectively. There's also going to be some clinic stuff in there. I will be joined by Lance Lopez in Nashville, and then Jamie Lamb in Muscle Shoals. And then, of course, Larry Mitchell will be the headliner on all three of those shows. So I'm super excited about all of this. So, but we'll be talking a little bit more about that coming up, and there will be proper promotion for all of that stuff. So, but one of the things that's happening is I am in preparation mode, and I'm playing somewhere in the area of 12 to 16 hours a day. And I found something very interesting. Is like when you practice, you get better. But, one of the challenges that people have is like, well, one, what do you practice? Two, how long do you practice? And three, how do you develop your sound? And the short answer is just get in there and do it. And I found that just all sorts of really interesting things are happening in the midst of all this. The other thing is that I got a new little toy here. I've actually had it for a while, but I'm in the process of, after having done the shows in Texas, as much as I love the little catalyst, which is great for what it does, I believe I mentioned last week that there are three kind of tiers of setup that for me represent the three primary ways I'm going to be taking this experience of what I do, and in many ways mirroring what you would potentially be doing. Is like how you take what you do in the studio and then begin to take it into a live environment, or take it into a live environment and maybe get better results than we are already getting. First of all, I love that little catalyst. It did a phenomenal job. I got a great tickle out of bringing this $400 modeling amplifier into the Dallas International Guitar Festival, and it just did great. And it also at the show in Marshall, it's just great. Great what comes out of the amp and what goes straight into the PA via the XLR out. It's the same. They did a great job. They actually modeled the speaker that's in there so that what you're hearing is what they're going to hear through the PA, and they just did a great job. That said, one of the things that I noticed was that one of the limitations of that is that, first of all, it's kind of a two-channel setup until you start using MIDI. Then you have, I think, 99 presets or something like that, which is plenty to work with. But the thing is that the fractal stuff, where it really shines, and the reason Joe, Steve, and John, as in Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, John Petrucci, and dare I say Larry, use this in particular. Larry was arguably my biggest inspiration, was just hearing the way he paints with the tones out of the FM3, FM9, whatever he's using. And so I've kind of spent a bunch of time getting to hang out. I've got an Axe FX 3 that's kind of over. Actually, it's back there in the rack. And I spent a bunch of time going through the different amp models, and I ironically, I ended up, and this was an interesting part of the journey just for anybody that cares to know, I ended up using a Fender Blues Junior model. And the interesting thing about all of this business, home layout. So here's, first of all, that's a stock, basic. And the delay is coming through. This is the one thing I haven't moved over yet, but I just want to let you guys know what you're hearing. Let's get over here. Let me see. There we go. We have got the delay coming through the Universal Audio. Apollo 8 there, and that is the Cooper Time Cube. And just a little bit on the sound design there. You should be hearing this in stereo. And if you listen to left and right delays, just a little tiny bit offset. So one of the things that I'm being very conscious of doing is any of the sounds that I'm going to create, if by chance they get summed to mono, that there's no weirdness. So let's see. I believe that's going to be on output is going to actually sum that to mono right now. There we go. Here's mono. Unsumming it from mono. And one quickly realizes how cool stereo is. But the thing is that you want it to be subtle, such that when it gets summed to mono, if it does, it's not going to be totally weird, and it loses that depth of field. So I'm trying to do things that if, again, you've got different things going on the stereo field on the left and right, when you bring them center channel, it doesn't turn into this giant wash of the delay. And one of the things is that, I have been tempted to do the traditional dotted eighth and quarter note on the left and right, but I know that when I bring those center channel in mono, it's just a little too washy for kind of what it is that I want to have. Just in case it gets summed to mono, having the clarity that I'm trying to look for is important. And ironically, that's just a Tube Screamer model on top of the Blues Junior. And the funny thing is that in all reality, the sounds in this thing are great, but a number of the stock presets didn't speak to me for what it was that I was trying to do. And the funny thing is, there was a guy that I used to know at a guitar center in Emeryville who swore by the Blues Junior. I've never actually played through one, and I was like, I don't know. And I dialed it up, and I was like, that sounds great. So it's kind of funny, in the act of using a digital platform, I kind of found a new amplifier that I'm kind of very curious to listen to in the real world and explore. So I thought I would share that with you. All right, let's get rid of that. So I can see that. Okay, good. Nandini, always a pleasure. Chaka, what's happening? Yeah, it's a great, the funny thing is there's, I got to tell you, first of all, that's about 2 points. So let me just read that out loud. Chaka says, good morning. Good morning, first of all. If you woke up one day and electric guitars didn't exist, only acoustic, would you still play? And the answer is definitively yes. Let's see if I can answer that a little bit more literally, because it's a great question. My buddy Glenn has loaned me this lovely Gibson acoustic, which is one of the finest instruments I've ever played. I can't guarantee that it's in tune, but set on the neck there. Get off of there. The answer is a definitive yes. There's a certain amount of the shredding that it takes a minute to kind of take over to the acoustic and get used to doing that. The other thing is I actually have over here in Doug's little bag of tricks when I'm in the process of mapping a ton of content. If you have or haven't noticed, I'm kind of doing a little less social posting than when I was in Texas. But one of the longer form videos I'm getting ready to make is on recording acoustic guitars, which is a whole little deal. And so I use a range of different picks to get different textures. Super soft pick or hard pick? An even harder pick. I did hit a little harder there, but the idea is to point out that the harder the pick is, the more it kind of has a transient response. And especially for that softness of the pick is a big deal. So all that to say, I absolutely love playing acoustic guitar. And if all I had to have the option of was playing acoustic guitar, I would gleefully do so. Thanks in part to Glenn's great guitar. But at the end of the day, my biggest passion, very clearly, is the electric. So, you know, there's just certain things like... There's something about doing that just kind of elevates the bloodstream. I don't know. It's something about that. I flippin' love doing that. That's what something about that is. There's nothing more satisfying than kind of being able to express with an electric guitar that things that cannot be done with words. All right, first of all, Kyle Harrison. Good morning, my dear old friend. How are you doing? I've known Kyle since GIT. Great to see you. Good morning, my dear friend. All right, let's see. Chris, could it be in Montgomery, Alabama? So I've got to find out where this other venue is. Hang on a second. I think it is in Montgomery. I will double check that, Chris. All right, Sonia, good morning. How you doing? I have still not got all my MIDI stuff gotten together, but I am in process. I was thinking of you this week because right over there is your fulcrum. So awesome. Good morning. Great to see you. Hello, hello. Eric Stevie Ray Vaughan, good morning. Not too late. You're here. All right, let's see. Doug DeYoung, what's going on, my man? Legend, what's happening? How is the train wreck model? So the funny thing is, to be totally honest, I went through I did like preset 92, and pretty much it wasn't until I got to preset 92 that I went, there's something that feels like home. Now, part of that is the fact that I'm going for, I kind of know how to use this thing now. Hold on, let me kill the delay there, and you can kind of hear the actual sound is. And so I'm going to be moving the delays over to the unit. That's, again, kind of the main reason I went there. And one of the other topics we're going to be getting to is how to make this thing loud, because that's really important, regardless of what unit you're using. If you're using some sort of modeler, how to take it from this environment to a stage environment is. That's a really great little clean sound, and I really have some stuff that I need to do. That's the number 2 position. Here's the middle one. Make sure I'm all the way up. There we go. Back to number 2. That'll be a little brighter now. I needed something that had some spank to it. Neck. A lot of clarity. Got some nice. If that's not dynamic range, I don't know what is. Then you add the little fuzzy guy. Sorry, the 808. And then add some of this little bit of sugar. Got to add some sugar to the pie. Here we go. There we go. There's the sugar. And collectively, that gives me a lot to work with, which makes me a very, very, very happy camper. All right, getting back to the U part of the equation, one of the challenges that many of us have is like, well, how in the world, and Paul, I see your question. Let me get to that in just a Oh, well, hang on. Let me just say, do I see that the Aris E8XT monitor is $90 off on my Sweetwater Gear page? Well, what a smoking deal. I love those, by the way, and I live by them. So this gets us, it's a great tipping off point or jumping off point. One of the challenges and one of the questions that I keep getting asked over and over is like, and I had a guy, what is his name? Hang on. My new modeling buddy. What is his name? Hang on a second. Scott Hunter. A year or more ago, I did a series of videos for Celestion on their full range live response speakers. And basically, those are speakers that are designed to bring the speaker experience to the stage in a very Celestion way for modelers. And Chris asked me about this as well. So my power amp of choice, you can barely see it hiding in that rack back there, is the Seymour Duncan Power Stage 700. And the great thing about that amplifier is, I think it's Class D. It basically is only creating volume and really affects the tone very minimally. It's stupidly loud. It's 350 watts per side. If that doesn't get the job done, you have other issues. So the thing is that they make a couple of smaller versions of it. I've got the lower wattage mono one around, and I've got to get what I believe is the 200 watt little stereo pedal board friendly one. I've got to get one of those in the arsenal, just because taking the rack and that the 700-watt one lives in the rack with the XFX3. But somewhere between the convenience of having, I've been using it here. The funny thing is that on the first video, which I threatened to share last week and then didn't, all the sounds are the Catalyst, like literally everything that I did, and I'm probably going to go in and replace it. But there are a couple of little things that are, dare I say, kind of signature. That I did on the Catalyst that I'm really tempted to leave them just because, first of all, the way that the part was played, it to me has kind of become synonymous with the song, and the fact that it's a $400 amplifier. I think if you're not careful, you can get into, kind of Snootyville with the gear versus like, hey, how's it sound? Does it fit the part? Does the part work? And if it does, then, just changing it for the sake of changing it doesn't make an awful lot of sense. I will say, if you compare the sound of a $400 modeling device to, I don't know, like this thing is $1,500-ish. First of all, the models that are in the Catalyst are ported over from basically Helixville. They're great sounding models, and there's some great sounding effects. The thing about the XFX is that it is just a kind of a different beast in terms of the signal processing on the effects in particular is why I'm moving to that universe for my live setting when I'm not going to still use the Catalyst. The Catalyst, hands down, is the best amplifier that I own. I'm going to make I started to babble about a minute ago about making longer format content. I've got a list upstairs. I've got this giant kind of 6x12 piece of paper, and I've got all the different kind of things in my life broken down by which social media platform and what type of content and what it is. I've got a long list of long format video content that I'm going to be making. One on recording acoustic guitars, the other on kind of how to go about taking your modeling sound into a live situation, because I get asked that question a lot, amongst a bunch of other things. So the point being is that the Catalyst is just a one and done. You've got great sounding models. You got a 112, that's the Catalyst 112-100, it's 100 watts. Straight out into the PA, sitting in with Larry Mitchell. Somebody was there as I was setting up. And I was like, hey, yeah, let's just run an XLR into the PA. And I was like, yeah, there's my setup, I'm done. I plugged in, went bang, 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 that was it. I knew what was going to come out of the PA was what I was hearing out of the front of the amp. Done. There is nothing else in the market that does it. I'm going to make a video on that. It's the best amp for the money. There's nothing that touches it. Nothing. And in particular, because you can go straight out into the PA, turn the stage volume off if you want to. There's also kind of the equivalent of power scaling, so you can kind of get the power amp, virtual power amp of that thing to respond a little differently. Brilliant amplifier. But the thing is that there are times that I'm wanting more sonic option, and listening back to the tracks that had been, or some of the videos that had been recorded while I was in Texas, I kind of went, it's a little one-notey. And that's the thing about watching Larry Mitchell play. So he's like going through a sonic landscape. It's one of the things that's brilliant, of many things that are brilliant about his playing, is he's painting with tone. He's painting with his fingers, but he's also painting different tones and textures. And it's just like, in fact, he's one of the most gifted players. Andy Summers, Larry Mitchell, Steve Vai, with the different lengths of the delays, and then, kind of juxtaposed to that is Joe, who, is somebody that Satriani, that is, who I've been thinking a lot about, is it's a very signature sound, but somehow, because of the strength of his arrangements, he can more or less work with subtle variations on one main sound all night, and you never get tired of it. I'm like, that's a very unique gift that I have not yet quite figured out how I'm going to bring that thing in there in a way that I don't feel like it's a little too one-notey. I just can't do it. And it is a real gift. Zach. I am really, really digging this, and I am excited about bringing all the delays and the reverbs over here. That's going to be an easy thing. And then I'm going to get into some deep editing, and I'm listening back to the material that I'm working on. And it's a great platform, and I'm really excited. And the Fractal folks have been amazing support. As have the Line 6 folks. Okay, so let's see. So Chris, basically, with the exception of the Tonex, there's another one. I have all the modelers, and most of the time the manufacturers send them to me, or somebody sends them to me for free. I'm very, very, very fortunate in that department. They're all really, really good, and honestly, they're pretty synonymous. I could probably make any of them work. I've never found. Let me see if I can say this without saying something I would regret watching later. There are companies that I have had much better rapport with than others. Fractal and Line 6 in particular have been outstanding in their interaction with me. And that means a lot to me, because the thing is it's really easy to support an artist when they're famous and they got a lot of stuff going on. It's a different thing when companies extend themselves to you when you're not well known. And it's just a different type of investment that they make because they're in it for the long haul. That matters to me a lot, and it should matter to everybody because I get the ideas like brands are there to sell business, sell units, and they want to work with people that are well known and helps do all that. I get that, but it's also different when they kind of go, "We like what you're doing, we want to support that." It's a big deal to me. So the Kemper folks, I've just never really. I gone by the booth a couple of times, and they just kind of. Well, I just kind of went by their booth. So that we'll just leave it at that. They're not as engaged as some of my other friends are. So we'll leave it there. But the thing is that actually there's a song. The great thing about these devices. I almost played that song with tracks this morning, but I didn't quite have time to get the looper set up. And I since I kind of played with the looper last week, I didn't want to kind of revisit that too much. And I felt if I'd kind of started the show there, we would have lived there longer than I wanted to. But that particular song, which is really one of my favorite songs, off of actually both did an instrumental and a vocal version on the instrumental and vocal EPs respectively. Wrote that on one of the sounds on the Kemper, and had it not been for that unit, one of my favorite pieces of music wouldn't have existed, because I just plugged in and kind of played and kind of went, and it went. Wouldn't have existed if it hadn't been for the Kempers. So I am deeply grateful for the technology and the time and the heart invested in creating that, because it allowed me to create one of my favorite pieces of music. It's literally the only piece of music that appears both on the instrumental and the vocal album, and had it not been for the Kemper, that piece of music would not have existed. So it actually sounds great on that preset, at least to my ears. I'm just like, ooh. But the point being is that the sound for me, my buddy Gary Brower said this, and I say this and I encourage you to think about how you can nurture this thing because it's something that I've learned. I've got a buddy, Jude Gold. You probably know him. Great guitar player, plays with Jefferson, Starship, Airplane. I forget what they're called, but the point being is they are airplaney, starshipy. They're great. And so I've known him forever. And I remember seeing him in a rehearsal, playing with all these different sounds and really painting with this great palette from a pedal board, kind of going, wow, he really has a great thing. And one of my takeaways was just watching the organic way that he nursed tones. He one knew what to use to get the sound, but he also, I really felt, had a great sense of hearing the sound of what the piece of gear was and digesting that and responding to that. And Gary Brower, the guy that works on my guitar, said that I've got a really good ability to hear a sound and then play something that's complementary to that. And that's something that I had to learn how to do. It's not something that just kind of, I fell out of the sky and, picked up a guitar and went to Guitar Center and made great music on every piece of gear. It's just one of the things that I've learned to do as a gear demonstrator. But as an end result, I'll plug into something. I go, oh, it's telling me to play this. It's actually one of my biggest frustrations when you get on someplace where there are amazing people on, but the gear page, and people are whining, I don't like the way it sounds. I don't like a V30. I'm just like, well, maybe you need to expand your playing horizons just a little bit. And, there's a reason Peter Frampton likes sticking a V30 in Fender amps, and Peter Frampton ain't sucking. In any case, I digress. Look at me. And I try not to be critical because, here's the thing. We're all on a journey. I'm not super critical of my own playing, only because I practice so much that the criticisms that I have, I only know that the only reason that they exist, the faults, are because I don't practice enough. So I'm trying to practice a bunch. So it's a great question, Chris. So I really appreciate. What did Kyle say? What did I miss? Okay, good. All right, so let me. Yes. So where the heck there he goes. How could I miss that bright orange? There we go. So I am using a cab, one of the built-in cabs. That's one of the things about the fractals. There is a literally, if you weighed all the cabinets that are in there in the analog world, there's probably a ton of great cabinets in there. And changing out the cabinet a little bit. And I did move from the stock cabinet on this, and I don't want to go down that rabbit trail too much. What is this? It's the legacy cabinet. So that's not. So I think it's the previous version of whatever they put in most recently. And I kind of went, sounds good. Let me try something else. And I went to this legacy cabinet, and I don't think it was what was stock that was on there. And I just kind of, oh, that really fits. But again, sometimes it's an ironic thing is that, on one hand, you hear a sound, and then you try and evoke something that sound is telling you to play. And what I'm trying to do, and what most of us are trying to do, is we've got a sound in our head, and we're trying to get that box to do that sound. And it was so strange because I kind of came across, again. We've still got the. I wouldn't have chosen the Blues Junior. It's got EL84, so it's not necessarily the loudest amp in the world. Chances are it's Class A because it's got the EL84s. I don't know for a fact. I tried to do a little bit of research on my ever favorite Sweetwater website because they usually have all the details, and usually they would list Class A or Class B if that's in the release information, and I didn't find that in there, but somebody on this thread will know that. But I'm pretty sure it's a Class A amplifier, so it's got a little bit of a tweedy thing. That is to say, that little amp right there, unlike a Fender Blackface, is a Class A amplifier, and so the sound is a little bit faster, it's a little bit spankier, and it's just got a different vibe to it. And in particular, what I was going for again was this song. It's actually the title track off the instrumental EP. There you go. It said that. That feels great. Like, if I can't play with that. I'm like, wow, that sounds good, right? And I was like, holy cow. And it was just, the funny thing is like, I remember that guy guitar saying, oh man, you got to check out the Blues Junior. And I was like, yeah, it's a little, just kind of, it's kind of, it's this little kind of small little Fender $700 amplifier. Of course, this is the guy that loves the $400 Catalyst. But boy, did I get schooled. I love that little amplifier. I'm really excited to see if the actual Blues Junior sounds as good as the model. Eric Martin Jr., good morning, my dear friend. And great to see you as always. Brad Jensen, how you doing? Good morning. Okay, let's see if I can focus. All right. What in the world does that mean? How are things, mate? Kiss the brissy ground for me? Melissa, what does that mean in English? Every so often, I need an interpreter here at the Doppler household. Melly, where do we get these shirts from? I love this shirt. Try the Helix 3.6 Grammatico. So, Zach, hey, so here's the interesting thing. First of all, I love, hang on. Let me pull the stuff off the top so it doesn't look like the rat's nest that it could. Hang on, rearranging, just give me a moment. I absolutely have fallen in love. I feel like Vanna Doppler White. I have absolutely fallen in love with tweed amplifiers. Hang on a second. Here we go. There we go. Look at this. Come on. There we go. There we go. Right there. Come on. Get in the frame there. There you go. There we go. There. Good. So, one of the things that we're going to be doing a lot more of, as I get a little less bashful, okay, pause button. Practice. I've spent, they talk about the 10,000 hours. I've probably spent 100,000 hours practicing. Over the past 3 weeks, basically all I do is eat, sleep, and play guitar. Hence why I kind of wore the shirt and the repeat part. And what ends up happening when you're afforded the freedom and luxury of being able to do that, you kind of eventually find your vibe. And it confirmed kind of what I knew and just, but sometimes you kind of go, if you're anything like me, there are times you're like, it all comes together, it feels great, it's really musical, it's all magical, you're in the moment, you're in the mode, and then kind of like, or you wake up one day and like your fingers kind of like the guy that I was yesterday, he's gone and I'm left with me again. But what I've discovered is that with copious amounts of practicing, you begin to discover things and reveal things that your hands learn. And it's one of the things about learning my own style that I knew that if I kind of kept chipping away at it, sooner than later than sooner, I would start playing things that were very unique that only to me, but I knew I had to keep doing it. It's very interesting to go back and listening to the different things that I've recorded and going, I can hear the influence that had on me, which is a funny thing to say, but I can hear the essence of things that I kind of built upon the stepping stones, where hearing the unfully realized version, but there's still the realized little essence of that. It takes the nurturing. It's kind of like, a baker kind of kneads the dough. You just got to kind of sit there and work with it. I just want to encourage you to just like, if you feel that it's kind of out of your fingers reach, just know that with the practicing, it comes. But it does take the work and it does take the time. As it relates to this gear, one of the things about all that practicing is that there comes a confidence where your fingers are just kind of used to delivering. And so one of the things I've been really excited to do that I'm not going to do today is plug in a bunch of these different pieces of gear so we can kind of do an in-person kind of like, hey, here's this, here's that. This Mesa Boogie right there is a Lone Star. They don't make that particular model anymore, but it has a tweed mode. And as tempted as I am to plug it in today, I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail yet. But it's a great sound. So I've never, to answer your question, Zach, I've never played the Grammatico actual amp, which is a tweed amplifier. But I can tell you, I love tweed amps. And I did, when I think it was Helix 3.1 or something, I did a video on that firmware when it came out. And I think I used 2 different Grammaticos in there. So the answer is yes, but not in 3.6. And I'm on, well, given the fact that you've potentially seen me do a Helix video on new firmware the day that the firmware is released, one could think that maybe I somehow have some inside relationship with them, which I do. So the thing is that the biggest thing that the Line 6 has done is they redid their cabinets in 3.5, and it was genius. It all sounds great. It all feels great. Again, I'm the guy that's wandering into the Dallas International Guitar Festival with a flipping Catalyst going, best amp in the building. And I could actually say that with a straight face and just kind of go, for my needs of what I needed to get done, it was the best amp in the building. $400 or $4,000, just great. They have figured it out. So, sorry, really long answer. Played through the Grammatico, but not in 3.6. And I don't necessarily know if I did it in 3.5. I may not have. I know I played through the Twin, which is preset number 1, which used to really kind of like, I used to have to go through all sorts of EQ stuff. And when they changed the cabinet out, literally just a stock preset, I changed the cabinet to the new updated cabinet. I was like, sounds great. Don't have to touch anything. In any case, that right there is the Joe Bonamassa signature high-powered Twin. Over there is literally Keith Richards' old high-powered Twin. I love tweeds, and they have a certain thing that I wouldn't have, and I kind of like them right just before the edge of breakup, and then that's just a little tube screamer in there, TS-808, and I was just like, wow, what a sound. Kind of tweed is good with me, and it was an unexpected part of my journey that I needed to kind of get through to. So, okay, with pleasure. We shout out. We love shout outs. So Carvin Mach 1. All right, good. Oh, thank you, Robert. Really appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Good morning, Mike Rand. Hello. Great to see you as well. Always a pleasure, my friend. Best way to do it. He must be Carvin Mach 1. I must have missed something. I do not know Songster Plus, other than I came across. All right, I need to make a note of this. I'm trying to remember where I saw it, but I'm making a note of it in my notes. But no, I have not used Songster, but it's one of the applications, programs, whatever that's is in the periphery of stuff that I'm in. There's spillover stuff that I have to be working on, and there's spillover, the stuff that I don't yet have a chance to focus on that I need to know more about. All right. Okay. Effects loop plugin or direct into the input. Great question. So the way I'm going to be running the delays and the reverbs inside the FM9 will be initially I will put them all after the amp. I will possibly put the delay before the cabinet block and the reverb after. Why would I do that? Because it's synonymous, kind of, with kind of inserting in an effects loop. And there are effects loop insertion points, but I don't believe you can actually insert it between the preamp and the power. I need to check that, because it seems like a really obvious thing that Fractal would allow you to have that insertion point, so you get the power amp, a little bit of power amp saturation around your delay and your reverb. But the thing about the Fractal stuff is the fidelity of that stuff is so high that actually placing it after the amp but before the cabinet for the delays, kind of simulating where you would place in the effects loop, and then putting the reverb after the cabinet. Why that? Generally speaking, I'm very conscious that when I take a reverb, the funny thing is that one of the interesting things about this sound that I've been using is that very traditionally, here it is in a dry, I would be adding the Lexicon 224. That adds some lovely, here it is without. Feels so good, holy cow. And then, but I've discovered with the delay, because the delays are that little bit offset, it creates enough of the feeling, not the sound, but the feeling of reverb that I don't really, I was like, the other thing is once I turn on the fun box, it adds just a little bit of a, you may not be able to hear it over the web, that is the reverb off, on, off, just a little bit of clarity when there's a bunch of other stuff going on in the mix. I'm like, you know, it's not really adding anything that like makes it groovy. Like on its own, without the delay. thing is, because it's kind of a tweedy sound, you're not used to hearing reverb with tweed. You kind of like don't need it. And the other thing is, again, tweed amps. Actually, that's the high-powered twin doesn't have reverb. The Mesa Boogie there. It was funny because I plugged into it and it was just Boogie has great reverb. They have the stock Boogie reverb and they have a Fender style reverb that's in that amp. It's the reason Andy Timmons loves that amp, besides the fact it makes him sound like Andy Timmons. Or I should say, just enables him to further elevate the sound that comes out of his fingers. But I put it into Tweedmo. I was like, oh, after messing with this, I'm like, let me go back over there because, as I think about, the 4 stages of this, and I'm really non sequitur this morning. I apologize for that. Oh, you made my day. Hang on, I got to bring this in. And I'm going to answer Robert Field's question in just a moment. Hold on a second. This is hilarious. You're very famous in my circle, to be fair, and I'm a big cheerleader for you. Laugh out loud. Thanks for sharing your wisdom. A diamond in a world of coal. Wow, you made my day. Holy cow! Fill my cup. Thank you so much. All right, hang on. There's something going on here. All right. So it's called Earl's Place. Let me see. The heck. What town is this in? We had this long exchange. So this is one of the things I failed to write down this morning. I know what street it's on. My apologies. There are times that I like to think that I'm actually kind of getting my act together, and then there are other times I'm like, very clearly, Montgomery. Yes, thank you, Chris. You're right. It's in Montgomery, Alabama, Earl's Place. All right. So answering Griffin's question, I will be using the effects in the fractal unit. I may be using some additional stuff on the floor there. The good folks at Source Audio sent me a giant box of pedals, and I really, really, really like their pedals. And they've done some exceedingly smart things with MIDI and communication between them using this proprietary platform that's not unlike what Line 6 did with their L6 link, where they just kind of have this great language of how things talk to each other. Very smart. And I really like the way the pedals sound. And so the thing is that I kind of like the idea of letting the fractal do what the fractal does and having a small pedal board with a couple of stomps that allow me to just kind of do a couple of different things. The one thing that I don't like about the way this is set up, and this is going to be a suggestion I'm going to have to them about their operating system, is when you're inside a scene, if you use an instance of the TS-808 Tube Screamer, and you have it shared between multiple scenes, whatever settings that Tube Screamer is set at, it stays set at regardless of which the different scenes you're at. There is a thing they've got called channels that I may be able to set up multiple channels for that Tube Screamer. But at first blush, the way you've got that Tube Screamer set up, if you make a change, like maybe you want a little less drive, when you go back to your scene of the 8 scenes that are on there per preset, that change will follow through from scene to scene. And it's one of the things that they do to kind of manage memory, and it's a brilliant unit. So what I'm going to suggest is that they allow you to create a second virtual instance and replace one of the other pedals in there. So it's basically a clone. So you can have 2 different versions of the same algorithm, but stored as separate things. That way you can work around that. If that makes sense. So the thing is that again, I'm going to try placing the delays between the amp and the cabinet block. So Eric, to answer your question, I am using stock cabinets, which I think I said before. The other thing is then the reverb. If I'm going to use reverbs, which I'm going to in certain sounds, because again with Larry and there are times you hear Satriani using them, obviously Mr. Vai, Mr. Petrucci. There are times that the reverb is going to be part of us. One of the things that, as I mentioned to Larry, the inspiration he's had about the sound design thing. He said, really, what he tries to do is he uses on the intros or kind of bridges or sometimes the outros. I think he said, but intros and bridges. That's where he'll use a different sound, just such that it's there's a certain continuity, but then there's other stuff that breaks it up a little bit. And the beginning of a song is a great place to give somebody a different sound. I thought that was very clever. And so that got me thinking about not over sound designing it, but choosing where you're going to do that, which I thought was a really of a number of very smart things that Larry does. I'm working with Larry pretty closely these days, and I'm learning a lot, and he's just on it. All right, so I may end up putting the delay after the cabinet. I don't think it's going to make that huge a difference, but I'm inclined to start there, and then kind of see what that's like. So, what do I like about this unit above all the others? It's a great question, Robert. Can I be really honest? Because I think it's good to be really honest. I have, and I think like all of us, I'm going to go off frame for just a second. I have this guitar. And I actually love this guitar. I actually love that it's got, ultimately, if at some point Gibson does a Doug Doppler signature, which is a dream that I'm kind of investing my own dollars and energy into kind of building what the template of version 1 would look like, it would be a rosewood fingerboard with block inlays. Absolutely love that, and would have the gold hardware. So this is a guitar. It had a headstock break. I got this on Craigslist for let's see if I can do this without destroying anything. I got it for $400 or something ridiculous. I mean, which is so stupidly cheap. Maybe it was a little bit more than that. But it's a great sounding guitar. But the other thing about it is it says Epiphone, which I know, it's like I said, let's be honest. Have a this one I will tune. And it's a great, and I mean great guitar, and especially for the money, I actually bought a second one, a black one, because, once I kind of get to properly touring, I'm going to need to have, it was C sharp. This one I keep tuned down. C sharp. Partially, I tuned it down because I was a little concerned about the headstock break. But I also kind of once I started hanging out with this thing tuned down. And to answer the other question now, I'm running an application that Universal Audio bundles with their audio interfaces, and this is called Console. It's just like a virtual recording console where you can put on an insert, a delay. A delay. actually a little less gainy than. Yeah, I'd be inclined to turn up the gain on the drive for this guitar. Oh, wait, oh, there we go. So I had the push, pull, pulled. For the money, it's a ridiculous guitar. But at the same time, as an artist, do I want to quote unquote be perceived as an Epiphone artist? Do I want to be perceived as a Gibson artist? Right? So kind of getting back to this whole fractal thing. I don't think anybody in the marketplace would dispute the positioning of a brand of Gibson compared to Epiphone, Fender, Squier. And similarly, I think the headspace around what a fractal artist is and what a quote-unquote Line 6 artist is, there are different spaces in the gear space. And as much as I could pretend like, oh, nobody cares, oh, there is a little bit of a thought about that. And, the great thing is that I have the privilege of working with both companies. So I can say, I think the Catalyst is the best amp in the world because for my needs, it's the best amp in the world. And the fact that I, would use it in as many places that I have kind of says it all, right? It speaks as highly for Line 6's technology as I can. That said, this particular unit, the production quality of the delays and the reverbs, and I don't know if I'm prepared to say that the models sound any better because honestly, I'm not a big fan of most of the sounds that I've played through it. I kind of literally got to preset number 90 before I went like, oh, I can live there. And that has nothing to do with fractal. It has to do with, and I've been having this conversation with a guy that I've become friends with, whose name I won't mention, it'd be inappropriate. But he's like a huge influencer. We're becoming guitar buddies. I mean, he's great. I love this guy. And, the conversation, I'm trying to encourage him to start producing some of his own sounds because he's going to be able to sell a bunch of them because he's got a ginormous audience. And, I kind of just reported back on this thing. I was like, most of the sounds the way, no fault of fractals, I just don't like the way most people set their amps. So what it means is like somebody sets the amp, they come up with a tone, and then it gets loaded into the box. And most of the sounds are not sounds that I would ever use. And so, and I know many of the amps that are in there, and the process of sound design and there's component level modeling that happens inside there, but there's still somebody somewhere who kind of, this is the sound of how I've got the amp dialed, right? And there's a bit of that gets mixed in there. And when they create a preset, somebody's twisting the knob, saying this is where I'm setting the treble, middle, and the bass. And most of the stock sounds, no fault of fractals, because I'm basically pissing myself over this little guy right here. My whole vibe is if I start playing and music starts coming out, that's a good sign. Right? And that's just like, this is great. The point being is that this guitar, I kind of negotiate back and forth as a lesser known artist, in spite of some of the very kind things that some folks are saying, which I really appreciate. I've got a lot of work to do, which I'm a worker. I love doing that. But, the perception in the marketplace, whether we like it or not, exists. And so the good news is I have the privilege of working both with the Line 6 and the Fractal folks. I know that there is a little bit of a perception. The other thing is that this particular unit, I think I like the sound of the fractal effects, and the huge range of algorithms, and there's also stuff that as you get inside the deep editing, I've spent again, I'm a huge fan of the Line 6 stuff, so don't in any way, it's not a conviction of them, but the level of tone tweaking inside the FM9, there are layers upon layers of what you can do to the Tube Screamer. I mean, it is freaky nuts. And for me, what I'm trying to do, where I'm going to be spending time, and I flipping haven't answered this question yet, you and just your modeler straight into the PA. Sorry, level 1, it's me and the Catalyst straight into the PA, and I've got some stage volume. It works. Undeniable, $400, best amp in the world. Then kind of the next level is like, okay, well, maybe I got to fly. I can't take that with me. Fractal straight into the PA. I'm dependent on the monitors. It's going to be different every night. I can opt to not depend on the monitors and use earbuds, which are they in the box? No, but I have the box. So these are the Westtones. They sound great. So that if I don't like the monitors, I can just kind of run those in it. But then you've got this thing in your ears. I flipping hate playing with in-ear monitors like nobody's business. It's just like, just let me hear the room. Let me feel the way the guitar, in the solar plexus is how you feel kind of how the air is moving in the room. You feel it from behind you if you got an amp and cabinets behind you, and your ears are sensing the way the sound is moving in the room. So between the physiology and the audiology of it, you can tell where you are in the PA. You can tell how the guitar is responding to itself in the room. And you can't do that as well, in my opinion, with in-ear monitors. But if you're not if you're not digging what's happening in the monitors, that's a solution. And it's one that means you should, in theory, have a synonymous solution no matter where you play, there's a lot to be said about that. The next level is taking the FM9 and then using the Seymour Duncan Power Stage, potentially using the smaller one, which is the 200, I think, on a pedal board sort of a thing, and then kind of maybe a smaller, I guess I'm going to have 5 levels here, and a smaller power amp, and maybe, Mesa Boogie. So my buddy Scott, is it Scott, my new buddy? What is it Scott? Hang on a second. Yeah, Scott. He was asking about good 112 cabinets. My favorite 112 cabinets, Mesa Boogie, they're called, I think it's pronounced Thiele, Thiele, and originally were made to be bass cabinets. They have EV 12-inch EVM 12Ls, I believe, at least kind of stock, and I swapped those out and put the Celestion's full-range live response speakers in there, and they behave and sound much more like a 412. If I didn't know what was behind me playing through a pair of those, you would think you're playing through 2 412 cabinets. They're huge. And, so that's a kind of a smaller rig. Then the big version of that is the Axe-FX 3, the Power Stage 700, a couple of 412 cabinets loaded with the Celestion full-range live response speakers. They make FM, they make the X150 and then the 200. One's 150 watts, the other's 200 watts, and there's some subtle differences. I need to decide which I'm going to use of the two, or maybe just use them in an X-Pad or something like that. There's also a company that I used their speaker cabs for a long time called Dragoon, and they make lighter cabinets that are these 212 that have little portals on the back. I don't know if they're technically still in business, and so I try and work with companies where the relationship is mutually beneficial. And if they're not actually in the manufacturing mode, which I've got to double check, then that would be it. But it's a 212 option. That's one of the things I'm thinking about doing this in between the 112 and the 412. Then there's the actual analog rig. So I've got all that orange stuff back there that at some point I may or may not actually, be able to move 3 100-pound each 412 cabinets. So those are the kind of levels of geardom. All right. Yeah, I love the time. I love the time machine. It's a great sounding delay. And the thing about what Joe traditionally did with us, he used 2 of them. So what he would, in the same way that we kind of had this. That little bit of kind of offset between them, and Joe would use more. I think he would use them in series, so the one would kind of trigger the other. When you get basically what a reverb is a sound bouncing off of the different reflective surfaces in a room that are different distances from the source, and that creates reverb. They're different length delays that get blended together, and then they start bouncing around the room and reverberating reverbs. So, or I should say, delaying delays or echoing echoes. Maybe is a better way of putting it. And so, and that's kind of traditionally been Joe's sound when he was using the time machines. It's a great sound. They're great sounding delays. And yes, I'm very familiar with that pedal. I found it. I took my sound with my GT1000 to that professional sound. Yeah, I found it took my sound. Yeah, and finding the right sound of delay is everything for being able to kind of cloak, if you will, your tone. Here's this thing off with no delay. Everything. Awesome. Sell some camper profiles all by I'm employed now. Congratulations. Hey, that's great. Spencer, awesome. Way to go. So I'm not quite at that point yet, but the short version is that I have a guitar buying habit that I need to offset it with a little bit more of an income habit. So that is on the list, but I want to be really sure. And I'm getting closer to it because I'm like, after kind of going through as many of the sounds, I was like, I'm not feeling that. And the great thing is that I have all these great amplifiers here. And this is the funny thing that's happening. I'm kind of like, I am, part of what happened was I found this sound. I was like, I really like that. And I was like, well, now let me go backwards from modeling to the real amps and see where, which I prefer, how and where and why. And so ironically, one of the things that might also happen, separate from the orange stuff that's here, might end up playing Mesa Boogie as well. Because Boogie and Gibson are I'm a Gibson endorser, and Gibson now owns Boogie, and there are lots of reasons why that could make a lot of sense. And so the neat thing is the reason Andy Timmons would use the Lone Star is for the 6 L6 clean side of that amplifier, but the kind of the new version of the Lone Star, I think, is more of a tweedy kind of a take on it, and that's why I plugged that amp in the other day, because I've got it set to the tweed mode. I've got it set. It's got a 100 watt, 50 watt, and a 5 watt mode. I think it's either 5 or 10. I of course went for the 5 watt mode because I want to get into that headroom a little bit, so it's got just a little bit of the squish in it, but not breaking up too much. And then like I said, I had just a little tiny bit of the reverb on there, which you wouldn't normally want with a tweed, but the reverb sounded so good. I'm like, I'm gonna leave that. It just was just a little butter on top of the bread. Not that it needed it, but I am getting pretty close to the point where I've just decided, you know what? I really like the sounds the way I like the sounds. It's an exception to the rule when I find something that I'm really into. And I think there are other people who would like to have the sounds that I'm going to come up with. But I just need to figure out, am I going to do that on my site, or am I going to do it through somebody like Worship Tutorials, who I'm very friendly with, and kind of let them have at it? Or, there's also Tone Junkie. Or am I going to have different vendors that can just, have at it, which would be the smart move. And that way I can sell it through my own. Okay. First of all, Craig, sorry, a little late, but let's see if I can. Not like that. Yeah, that's the thing. When you drop tune a drop tune guitar, it's usually not going to give you the best results. Hey, Craig. All right. Dean, what's going on? Hello. Oh, boy, that's about 1 point. So, any great resources for an FM9 Turbo? Just got mine. I'm hoping to put aside some time to get launched. Okay, first of all, congratulations. First of all, and let me scroll down here. Oh boy, somebody has done a good job. Of keeping up with the thread here. Rick, hello. Jamie, hello. I can't wait to see you again. What if we call this? I love this. On Saturday, 7/22 in Muscle Shoals, the Shoals Axe Fest. Jamie's going to be shredding away along with Larry Mitchell and myself. Okay, that epi is nasty. I love that. All right, hang on a second. Let me try and finish answering this stuff. I apologize that I'm obviously not keeping up with the threadiness here. Okay. Okay, Sonia. Yes, the speaker's not in that little boogie cabinet there yet. All right. So in terms of the FM9 Turbo, Dean, the reason I was scrolling was to see how much stuff there is below. Can you do me a favor and tell me how much experience you got with modelers? Because that's going to be an important thing. So it took me a hot second to get my head around this thing. Number one, I would strongly suggest getting the deep editor and starting on the deep editor. The reason being is just like everything's laid out on a grid. It's stupidly easy to navigate in the deep editor. The thing is, I decided I wanted to start from the unit because I'm going to be somewhere on a gig in like a June 10th opening for Neely Brosh in Southern California. And if there's something I need to change from this, I'm not going to have my laptop there going, oh, it's time to deep edit. I need to know how to operate this thing from the face. And I have to tell you, this thing is a little bit of a bear until you kind of get used to kind of its little deal. So at one point, my buddy Andrew Bonnick and I were thinking about launching a thing. Actually, I bought a bunch of domains with a .university extension, which are hideously expensive. And not only that, when you put them in a link, quite often they're not always recognized .university. So in any case, but the idea was to create, I did actually one for Helix with Sweetwater. They have if you've heard me say this before, I apologize for repeating, but it is a Sweetwater Helix Worship Edition. The guys at Worship Tutorials provided some free presets, and I provided this Helix training course. So it's actually something that I've done in this platform, content management system, CMS, called Kajabi. So doing something for the FM9 that would be probably a quick start wouldn't be a bad idea. The thing about my setup here, although you can't necessarily tell, although I'm doing a terrible job of, there we go, minding my B camera. Mind your B camera there, buddy. I have a lot of different cameras here, and somewhere over there, I think right there, you can see a top-down camera that's going to be heading over there. Such that as I have something that needs a top-down, or the FM9, I can do that. And for these Saturday shows. So the short version is navigating the different screens. And the one thing that I kept doing that I'll warn you against is again, the one thing that was a little frustrating, it's in the manual, and the manual is like 5 million pages, is that when you're working in scenes, which allows you to kind of navigate kind of a basic sound in different variations and turn different stomps and delays and reverbs on and off and have spillover as you go inside a scene, is that if, for example, you make a modification to the tube screamer from one scene inside the same preset to another, any changes you make, they will follow kind of globally within inside that preset. So you just kind of have to keep that in mind. And the same thing is true with your amp models. Now, the thing is there are different channels. So like there's like a fat and normal or dry or whatever it was that was for this particular amp model. So that's one of the workarounds. And the deep editing with the amps and the pedals means that you can probably get them sounding really close. And maybe ultimately with the variations get something that you're happier with the different variants of kind of using the different channels. What I don't know is on your stomps if you are able to have multiple channels of the stomps. That is to say, there's channel A, B, C, and D, where you just have different variation of the stomp. I do not believe channels apply to the stomps. I need to find that out, but I will. So that this is where I'm going, is that if you use either right cursor or right arrow, you can move out of the selected model, and then kind of, I think when you head back, I think it takes the model back to its default. So you just got to be careful as you're navigating in there of not actually going too far with either the jog wheel as you're kind of navigating through the different windows. You'll get to a certain point and you get to the rightmost one, and it'll spill over into the next available amp model, and then you just basically hosed everything that you've done. I don't think when you go back, it keeps the last settings of where you had the amp done. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure that was one of the things that I ran into. So just be conscious of that. The other thing that you will notice is that right next to the bypass, so you can select blocks. Next to the bypass button is the delete button, and I kept deleting a block instead of bypassing, and this is like basically you get no sound, and then you got to learn how to create a block from scratch. So that took me a minute to just kind of wrap my head around, which is why I would suggest starting with the deep editor and then just kind of going, kind of level by level through this thing and reading through the manual first, which I kind of did in conjunction with working with this. Also, Leon Todd has a really good video that kind of walks through some of this stuff. But there's enough stuff that without a top-down camera of really seeing which button is pressed, little bit of a thing. So that is to say, I haven't done any other deep editing, deep research on YouTube to see if there are any other videos that are great on it. But Leon Todd is a great place to start, and he's a great player. It's great to watch him just rock through that unit. All right. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, I love tweeds. I cannot lie. I feel the same way. What's going on? Dinosaur. Okay, let me make sure that. Yeah. So that boogie cabinet I bought for like $200 or $300. I mean, something really cheap. Maybe it was four. I don't know, but it was like really cheap, and it didn't have any speakers in it. So I've got to put some speakers in there. Hence why, yes, it is camo. All right, let's see. Can't practice enough. Oh, the back is better, by the way. Good, good, good. Good morning to you, Anthony Lucchese. All right, Jamie again. Good morning to you, my friend. Okay, so the F12 X200, the F12M 150. So they had slightly different EQ patterns. I think one was a little bit lighter than the other, and I don't remember which one it was. But the idea is if you're kind of doing long miles and you're pulling cabinets in and out of the vehicle. It's been long enough since I plugged. I didn't get out to storage to bring them back. I've got them in an X pattern and two Marshall 412 cabinets. And then I don't remember which I've got in the Boogie 112, but I'm going to haul all that stuff back here because invariably I'm going to take, that's going to be this, and those are going to be my rig for the Neely Brosh gig, which means I'm going to be flipping loud. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be really good. I'm believing it's going to be really good. So that is to say, they were close enough that just, and that's, I think, one of the things I said in the Celestin videos was they're close enough in sound that I would, you could easily EQ the difference. I mean, it was really, really subtle. At one point, in one of the videos, I did an A-B back and forth, so you can really hear it, and it's really subtle. I showed the EQ curve, and again, it's really subtle, but one has a little bit of a as I recall, a bump around 200, and the other drops off in the top end, which matters if you're using piezos and need a little bit of extra air on the top end, but otherwise, for most guitar players, you're not going to be up there doing any stuff. So first of all of those rigs will be stereo, but again, I'm also being very conscious of that. When I go stereo, I'm going to try not to create too much radical stuff. So there's a song that I was listening to that's on the vocal EP that I decided so I'm going to do it as an instrumental as well. And there's a thing where I was in the studio going to put the modulation where it kind of goes to the B section or the pre-chorus on one side and have it kind of do a kind of univibe type of modulation kind of swirly deal. As a backing track live, and or if I go to play that part live, I'm going to put it on both sides, left and right. Because, if it's a fairly wide venue and the spread is over here, all they're hearing on one side, and all they're hearing over is the direct sound. So I'm going to kind of split the difference, and at least for that instance, I'm going to create kind of either a dual mono or something that's very close on the left and right, so that if you hear them merge together in mono, they sound good. If you hear at the far end of the left or right, they're still going to sound good. So I'm probably going to take the Marshall 412s. I might bring the Boogie 112s, but chances are the Marshall 412s. And the Boogies are the Thiel cabinets, and they flippin' sound great. I will bring both of those back from storage and try them out. Okay. So as I recall, so that's a great question. So they have, by the way, is this Scott Mod 2 TVF? Is that Scott, or is this a different guy? Can you answer that down below? Brent Milligan, hello, great to see you, my friend. Okay, let me see if I can get through here. I have a lesson that starts in 21 minutes, but I need to kind of make sure I answer everybody's stuff. All I think those 112 cabinets to which you're referring, I think were designed by Zilla Cabinets, and it's basically a similar thing to the Thiel cabinets, where it's designed to be kind of a really cool 112 thing. I have not tried them, and I thought it was really cool that Celestion put forward a suggested cabinet build that specifically to maximize the speakers. I thought it was really, I mean, if you think about it, the fact that Celestion jumped into the IR game and the speakers for IRs, very forward thinking, and they did a flippin' great job, and I love working with them. I've also worked with a number of other speaker manufacturers, including Eminence, who I also love working with. It's a small world, but at the end of the day, as I look at the stuff behind me, wrong finger, Celestion, Jensen, no, Celestion, that's an Alnico Blue, wrong finger, Orange Voice of the World, Celestion. I more of the speakers that I have are Celestion, but there are also a bunch of Eminence over on that wall there, and then back over there, there's all the Randall stuff that's got basically the Jaguars, which were, in my understanding, OEM by Eminence. Okay. Yes, I'm running the Fractal straight into the Universal Apollo 8. Just flipping sounds great. Just ridiculous. UAD8, correct. Rick Laird, good morning. How you doing? Good. Epiphone makes great guitars. Absolutely, Spencer. In the 80s, I was teaching, and it was the only copycat company where the act would stay in tune and sound great. They sound great. Here's the thing: is what they did on the Flying V here that I love. I love that it's got the custom inlay here. I really do, and they've kind of, maybe this is an ebony board. I really, and in Gibsonville, the goal is to actually let's do this. There we go. I want to get the block inlays. I love a bound neck. I like the sound of rosewood and the feel of rosewood above ebony. I like that this gold style thing, but I also like that custom kind of little dealio up at the headstock there. Volume. There we go. Yes. All right, let's see here. But Epiphone makes great guitars. The Prophecy, thank you very much. And I literally went out and bought a second one. That kind of says it all, right? They didn't send it to me. I went out and bought it. I think one of the greatest compliments I can give is when another guitarist makes me want to grab my axe and play. Doug does that for me. Dude, make my day. Right on. Hey, what's going on, Michael? How you doing? Pleasure. I like that photo. Hello. Epi is nasty. Okay, low end, Chugalicious. Absolutely. Witched Link. Okay, I love the Theo cab. Yes, no, they're great. I love the 3D feeling. Absolutely, they sound great. Posted a link to the website and it disappeared. My website. Whose website? Jamie's website. I'll get your CD. Yeah, Jamie, you better get him a CD. Or otherwise he's going to come track you down. Okay, Sean. There we go. All right. Mark, what's going on? Do you ever remove the covers from your humbuckers? I just realized I don't own a single covered humbucker on any of my guitars. Okay. Oh, yes. Oh, that is Scott. Okay, great. Sorry, I kind of was a little late in figuring that out. Yes, I do have volume down before you do that. I do have a guitar that does not have... let's see. I got a couple. Hang on. What am I going to play? Here? I'll play you. Oh, it's got one cover. All right, fine. No, that's got two covers. All right, no. I knew that. There we go. How about one with one cover? How about that? The great thing about a guitar is it will change your life. All right, so the bridge is uncovered on this one. For this guitar, and where are we at? 7.12. I need a little tiny bit more gain. These are vintage PAFs, and compared to that 38th anniversary PAF that's in the Flying V, that guitar is just a little bit more gainy. The thing about this guitar is just like it's a little out of tune, but it's an old guitar, and it's just it's got the PAFs in it, so it's an uncovered PAF. But I find on this guitar, just you need to roll off on the bridge tone control. Just a little bit. Yeah, so there's one around here that doesn't have any pickup covers on it. Yeah, I don't really, Eric, I'll see you a little later, my friend. You know, it's Yes, yes, and yes. Scott, all right, good, good, good. All right, first of all, I've got about 11 minutes until my next or my first lesson starts. Any other questions? I want to make sure I kind of get to them. Hang on. Let me also make sure I got to them over here. Oh, right. Mark, awesome. Thanks, man. Um, so Chris had actually asked a couple of great questions. About the live sound. Does the Power Stage 700 actually change the sound? It doesn't. And then the other thing is when I'm playing with a live band, is there a certain position on stage that I prefer? And that's a really great question. With the Neely gig in San Pedro on June 10th, I'm going to be playing with tracks on the gig in Nashville on July 21st, the gig in Muscle Shoals on July 22nd, and the gig in... Did I write it down? The other place in Alabama. Gosh darn it. Where is that? Chris, what town is that in? Gosh darn it. Hold on. Montgomery. And I'm going to be playing with trio. And it's going to be kind of the first venture out with the trio. And I am, thank you, Chris, appreciate it. Ridiculous band. So it's Angeline Saris on bass, who played on both the instrumental and the vocal EP sessions. And then a drummer named Tasha Jones, who I met at a NAMM show jam at the NAMM show. And she is unreal. The two of them, they're both ridiculous musicians, amazing human beings, and I am going to have one of the most ridiculous live bands, just insanely good. But I also am really enjoying playing with tracks because it's just another way I can express myself. There's a different way. At first, I was really, I'm not going to do tracks, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? And I've learned so much by working with the tracks, and it's informing me kind of in a strange 360-degree oh boy, that's a great topic there. Yes, we can come back. Oh, 1 point font again. Maybe a future discussion about FRFRs, or if they're truly flat, should it be making much of a difference? Thinking about hosting a local shootout so we can do some real A/B comparisons of various FRFR cabinets. Well, you said that the operative word right there, which is the cabinets. The cabinets will hugely influence it. Really, pretty much the least friendly thing I want to listen to my guitar through is generally 50% of the time some sort of stage monitor / wedge. So the manufacturers, I'll pull myself just back a little bit from the edge here and say that there are a lot of options on the market where they basically have taken a stage monitor and just call it an FRFR thing. And some of those, I know they just haven't done any change to what was just a normal monitor. You're basically playing through, a monitor. It's not really designed. It's designed primarily so vocalists can hear themselves. Guitar players being able to hear themselves through that is an afterthought. They're really designed for vocals. If you think about who you see on stage, who has an amp and who doesn't. Vocalist, hello. And then, maybe keyboardists, and also with the silent stage, then, the whole IEM thing. But the Montgomery show is going to be on the 23rd, which is a Sunday, and there's also going to be a clinic in the afternoon. Very excited about all of this stuff. And I think we're doing a clinic also. Jamie, are we doing a clinic at your show as well? I think we are. I should know this, but I'm not making good enough notes about some of this stuff. And it's all kind of a little bit in motion. I'm also working on a gig, though it's not announced yet, on the Sunday night of the last night of the Petrucci camp. The Petrucci camp ends on a Sunday. I'm working on getting a gig in Florida that Sunday night. That I think is August 6th. So we'll see. Answering for Jamie, yes. Thank you very much. Okay, good. Jamie had to run. Thank you. Yes, so there's going to also be a kind of a fractal live, sound for your modeler gig. I sort of see them like IRs. A friend told me just choose a Marshall 12 with Celestians, standard a go-to cab anyway. So, okay, so great. Thank you very much. Excellent. I got a graphic just a little bit before the live stream, and I didn't really get a chance to go through it with any great level of detail. Where did he send that? That must have come through here. That's where it came through. All right, hang on a second. There we go. There we go. I've got the updated thing. There we go. And there we go. Guitar Clinic 4 p.m., Q&A 5 p.m., concert start 6 p.m. Thank you very much. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There is the flyer for the show. All right. Hold on. Tip my hat like Larry. All right. So here's the short version of it, because Mark, you touched on a couple of really important things. One, the cabinet makes a huge influence on the sound. The thing about the Celestion speakers is they're designed to behave in a way that's full range but with a live response. And that they tried to create a speaker that acted like a guitar speaker that was designed to be placed in a guitar cabinet, such that the way it moves there, the way it responds, the way it kind of does its thing, but it's designed to take the sound of an IR and then replay that in a traditional guitar cabinet. And that's really the big thing about what Celestion did. Is like, we want you to put it in a traditional cabinet, which is a big, big, big deal. So the thing is that if, backing up a step, if you're just going to walk into a situation, one of the things, you can't see it, but right there is literally one of Joe Satriani's JVM 410 JS heads. He loaned it to me a while ago, and he hasn't asked for it back. And so that particular amp, Joe very wisely used the Marshall G1275T speakers such that anywhere in the world, if he's got his head, he just used a backline cabinet. Now, I don't know whether, Joe, chances are travels with his own cabinets when he's cruising around, because he's just that around and he can do that. But the cabinets are expensive. So let's say you've got a pier somewhere and you don't want to actually have to, freight your cabinet to wherever it is. You bring the head and you have a backline company bring the cabinet. Those cabinets are incredibly consistent. So, it's just a great way to go. My whole thing about this whole Celestion thing is that Marshall 412, and I like a slant these days, and I learned this playing at actually sitting in with Joe at the G4 Experience camps, is that I used to like a straight, a 1960B cabinet, but the slant top, the 1960A cabinet, means if you're on a slightly smaller stage and it's 1 million dBs and you need to hear yourself, that top pair of speakers being angled back at you, you need it, and it's really good to have. You just need, because of all the people playing on stage, I'm the person that's going to get the least attention, and I don't say that in a disparaging or negative way. It's just reality. I got 3 minutes to do my lesson. So the point being is that the 1960B cabinets or 1960A cabinets are great cabinets. You get the top angled back, so if you're on a smaller stage, you can hear the top thing, and so that's probably going to be my main choice, simply because that top speaker being angled back, it means I can set up wide. Chris, I didn't completely answer your question. On those particular things, I'm going to be center stage. I actually love being in the center, but generally speaking, it's ideal to put your bass player on stage left, so they're on the hi-hat side of the drummer, which means my main place that I set up is stage right, and I love being there because I can look down the guitar neck and see the rest of the band. The only problem is when I'm playing with the keyboardist, we've been setting him up in the studio to my right, and it means that he's kind of off out of my kind of my main view. So at the point that Peter Keys also plays with Skidder, when we start playing live with him, I'm going to have him over on the left. That way I can look and see the whole band, and it means I can have more gear on stage. Spencer, have a great one. Thank you so much. Have I tried another modeler with the ambient option on the Line 6 Catalyst? That's a great question. I have not. And the funny thing is like the irony of kind of piggybacking modelers together, which is really pretty funny. But it's actually a very smart idea, in that it's giving you the ability to take. So for those of you that are not, actually probably everybody here gets it, but you got your effects loop. It's the preamp out. It's basically an insertion point in between the tone stack, the part that's creating the EQ section and the power amp. So you put in your delays and your reverbs in there, and you kind of bring it back to the power amp. What he's talking about doing is actually inserting your other modeler and basically using the catalyst as a powered cabinet. What I don't know is, with the magic of what that particular device does, is I think they have taken the sound of the entire model, preamp section and power amp section included, in combination with a speaker, and they've modeled that for the speaker model. Probably will sound great with some other another modeler. But what you may end up having happen is you may get some overlapping EQ curves that most of the time, honestly, they say that you're not supposed to use. Like you're supposed to turn off your IRs if you're running into a regular guitar cabinet with regular speakers. And honestly, most of the time, I'm like, usually it sounds fine. Ideally, you're supposed to turn, if you're running a traditional guitar cabinet, you turn off your IRs. But I've experimented with it, and I've heard other people have done it, and they're like, it sounds fine. By the way, it's 11, so ladies and gentlemen, I've got to go. And yes, the standard go-to cabinet, if you're just looking for the dummy answer, like what cabinet to get for a traditional 412, the Marshall 1960A cabinet is a great solution. And I've got a pair of them loaded, like I said, with these Celestion speakers. They will probably be here next week, and I look forward to seeing you. Scott, pleasure to meet you. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in and hanging out. And I look forward to seeing you next time, and hopefully seeing you, dare I say, out on the road. How fun to say that. Have a great week. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on Saturday. And again, I look forward to seeing you next week or sometime out in the